I'm Tammy Kolda, an applied mathematician, and this is Unlocking LaTeX Graphics. Today's episode is about using the powerful Groupplot library in PGFPLOTS, which can arrange plots into a grid pattern. In many computational and data science papers, you'll see grids like this. Today I'll work from data from 4 different data sets, each of which has 3 different plots. Rather than try to plot 12 different lines on one set of axes, we'll arrange this into 4 plots on a grid. The primary advantage of Groupplot is that everything is nicely aligned without extra effort on your part. It also makes it very easy to control the spacing between the plots, share the X and Y labels across rows or columns, and more. Today is one of a series of videos on this YouTube channel where I am providing a detailed how-to guide on using TXE and PGFPLOTS. These videos are based on my book, Unlocking LaTeX Graphics, as well as some bonus materials. Here's our document preamble for today. I'm using the packages parskip and full page to make things look nice. I use hyperref to link the author name to the YouTube channel. I'm using the package lipsum today, which I haven't really used before. It's just going to generate some nonsense text as a filler. The important package is, of course, PGFPLOTS. Today, we're also going to use a special PGFPLOTS library called Groupplot. I've specified here some recommended defaults that I suggest to always use for PGFPLOTS. Those are setting the compatibility to some appropriate version. Here I'm using 1.17, scaling only the axis, setting the default title shift to 3 points, setting every mark to be solid. And I have a prior episode where I talk about these suggested defaults, and I'll link those in the show notes. I'm going to go ahead and close that, and then we'll talk about the settings that are really for today's episode. So I'm setting the title style to be bold. I'm setting the label text to be small. The tick labels and the legend text will be footnote size. I'm also creating a special style that I've just named and created. I'm calling it small axes. It's going to create axes which are 3.3 by 3 centimeters. And then I'm also shortening the tick length here. Its default is 1.5 millimeters. I'm going to make it a little shorter at 1 millimeter. So this is the first time I think that I've used major tick length on this video series. So that's one of the options that you can play around with PGFPLOTS. I'm also defining 3 styles, E1, E2, and E3 that I'm going to use when I do my add plots. Because these PGFPLOTS commands are at the preamble, these settings will be applied to all the plots in the document. I cover fonts and styles in prior episodes, which I'll link in the show notes. I've already created a document section that we'll talk through. Let me explain a bit what's going on here. I have some artificial text that I generated with lipsum above and below a figure. In the middle is this figure environment, like what you might see in a paper. That figure environment contains 4 TXE pictures. This corresponds to 1 plot per data set, and each of those plots has 3 curves depicting different values of some epsilon in these imaginary experiments. Inside the figure environment, I have everything collapsed right now so you can see the structure. So we have the figure, we have centering, then we have some PGFPLOT set commands, which I'll show in a minute. Then we have our 4 pictures and a caption. So let's go ahead and expand this PGFPLOT set and see what's inside. These will apply to all the TXE pictures in this figure environment. I'm using the small axes we defined above. I'm setting the x-axis label to iteration, the y-axis label to error, and I'm going to set y-min to be 0. Then I have 4 TXE picture environments. So let's go ahead and expand the first one and zoom in on it over here. So what we have is we set the title to dataset 1, which you can see here. We go ahead and specify the legend entries, epsilon 1, epsilon 2, epsilon 3, and you see the legend over here. I've also changed the legend style a bit. I set the outside drawing to be none, so there's no frame around it. And I also set the background to be none, and that way it prevents it from obscuring a little bit the charts. I've also done 3 plots using those plot styles E1, E2, and E3 that we defined above. And then these are plotting particular columns of our data set D1, E1. So that's data set 1, epsilon equals 1, again, in this artificial environment. The other pictures are similar. So if I go ahead and expand the second one, I have just set the title in my axis, and then I plot the 3 things. I skipped the legend because it's the same. And then you can see here, we're plotting slightly different columns. These were the D1 columns, and these are the D2 columns. So this data file is actually very busy. It has 13 columns. 1 is for the iteration numbers, and then the rest are for these error values. So I'm not going to go too much into the details of these plots, and I encourage you to go back and watch my earlier videos just to get started on the different line plots. One thing you'll notice is that these 4 plots do not fit on one row. So we have 3 plots and the fourth one wraps to the next line. So what I can do to fix this a little bit is I can just go ahead and put a new line after the second plot and go ahead and recompile that. Now we see that we have 2 plots above and 2 plots below. And this might be sufficient for you, and you don't need to use group plots at all. But if you look at this a little bit, you'll see that things don't quite align. And this can be more severe depending on what you're doing with your plots. But here, these 2 left axes don't quite align, and these 2 don't quite align. Sometimes the bottoms don't quite align depending on what's happening. And so that can be a real annoyance when you're just doing separate tixy pictures, each of which contains its own axis. So the best thing to do, I think, is to use the Grouplots library to solve this. So now I'm going to show how you can make the same picture except using Grouplots. As before, I've already pasted everything over here, and we have our fake text above and below and a figure in the middle. This time, the figure environment has only one single tixy picture environment inside of it. So let me go ahead and expand that, and we'll see what's inside of there. Inside here, rather than the usual axis environment, we have the Groupplot environment. Note that Groupplot is singular and the library is plural. Inside the options to the Groupplot, I'm putting a bunch of things that are shared. So small axes, which is that style that we defined up above, the X label, Y label, and Y mid. These are things that are shared across all of the different plots within our group plot. Then there's also this group style where special options have to do with the group plot are put. The main thing we define at this point, and you always need to define this, is the group size, which is formatted as column by rows, and I've specified 2 by 2 to start, and we'll play around with that a bit more. Scrolling down, we get to see how each new set of axes is created. It's created with the next group plot command. The options that you can put to this are nothing or anything specific to that plot. For example, for the first group plot, I'm going to set the title, and this one will also include a legend, similar to how I did it before. The main thing here is that we have only one tixy picture environment and just one group plot environment. We have 4 next group plot commands. So the first one, the options, then plots for that. Then we go to the next one, add its plots, the third one, and the fourth one. Looking over at the result, we do see problems with the spacing. The X label on top is overlapping the title on the bottom plots, and then there's really not enough horizontal spacing here. This is because the horizontal and vertical separations are not big enough. They default to 1 centimeter, but we can change that. So we'll go back up to the group style, and then we'll go ahead and add vertical separation and horizontal separation, make those bigger, and adjust them till they're where you like them. In this case, I'll make the vertical separation 1.5 centimeters. Now there's enough room there. And then I'll make the horizontal separation 1.2 centimeters. So that's now fixed. Observe that these axes are perfectly lined up. So the left sides are perfectly lined up and the bottoms are perfectly lined up. So that's on a nice grid. To save a little space, there's things we can do. So we can, for example, remove the repeated X and Y labels by using a special command in the group style, which is X labels at edge bottom and Y labels at edge left. So I pasted that. So let's recompile that here. And so now we only have error once on the left for each row, and then iteration is once on the bottom for each column. And that also means that we no longer need so much vertical space. So I'll go ahead and just comment out that vertical separation for now and go back to the default of 1 centimeter. If you want even more space savings, you can actually remove the repeated tick labels as well. For example, I can put X tick labels at edge bottom, and now we only see the tick labels 5 and 10 and the bottommost plots, and then here we just see the tick marks, and we just have to read them off here. This will only be appropriate if all the plots have the same min, max, and ticks. Let's change the group size just for fun. So if you did, for example, 3 by 2 up here, what you would see is that it just uses as many spots as are available. And if you have 6 spots and only 4 data sets, it works it out. That's kind of nice. Let's see if we can get everything onto one row here. So let's do 4 by 1 and see what happens. So if we zoom out a little bit, we see that we get our 4 plots onto the one row. It's just a little bit too wide. So we have a few options here. One is to change the horizontal separation. So I had added extra space to it. Let's actually now make it a little bit smaller. So make it 0.7 centimeters. And now with that distance, things are very nice. We could also make them all on the same Y scale and use shared tick labels. So let me go ahead and change the Y max to be 2.5. So that makes them all the same. And then we'll share the tick labels at the edge left. So now those are shared across, and that works great. I really hope you enjoyed today's video on using Groupplot. I think it's a super powerful tool and useful in so many environments. There's a link to the overleaf document we created today in the show notes. If you have ideas for future episodes, please leave a comment. And if you like this video, of course, click like or subscribe. You can also buy my book, Unlocking LaTeX Graphics, at your favorite book retailer. Thanks for watching.